been a while, so I thought we'd dive into another mixtape and finally change it up a little bit. So this mixtape's going to be a little bit different. With this one, it's quite a very new mixtape. It's very recent and I came across it while trying to find something to write about. And the name of it interested me, I suppose. So this is the Chum Bucket Mixtape. A mixtape that probably very little of you have heard about, but it piqued a lot of interest for me purely because of its name. The name Chum Bucket, of course, comes from the plankton establishment in the TV series Spongebob SquarePants. And that's basically how this whole mixtape begins. It's the theme. So as usual, this video will contain descriptions of graphic content. And with that being said, let's take a look inside the Chum Bucket Mixtape.
Let's see. A 5-letter word for happiness. Money.
This is the worst service we've ever had. We're going to the Chum Bucket.
Wait! Wait! Don't go!
Oh yeah, we are definitely out of here.
Yes!
Okay, so that brings us straight into the first clip, which I'm sure many of you have probably seen on Twitter, or X as it's called now, where there's basically a woman being thwacked in the face with a gigantic watermelon that she's put onto a catapult. So what you can see on screen here, blurred out, is basically part of the Spongebob episode, except when the man comes through the floor, the Chum Bucket isn't actually the Chum Bucket. Somebody's badly photoshopped a picture of the Chum Bucket into a room that's covered with blood. It looks a bit like a crime scene. So this room appears, and then a video of what seems to be some sort of K-pop group pops up, in which there's a woman walking across the stage, in which she then proceeds to be crushed by a giant piece of equipment. And then you're launched right into the Gore videos. So you have a group of people surrounding somebody who looks to be in an airport, and the person on the floor is basically lying in a huge pool of blood. You also have a video of a guy who has his whole tongue removed, in which he then decides to try and put the tongue back in his mouth. There's also, of course, genital mutilation, in which there's a guy who's got his penis and he basically lodges it into some kind of twisty mechanism. It turns out that it is actually a sausage grinder and he's grinding his own sausage. Now whether this is real or not, could be, might not be. Is it fake? Probably. It just looked like a bit too much, mincemeat coming out of the machine for me to say it was real. There's also CCTV footage of a woman in a wheelchair being wheeled across a road, in which a white car completely takes out the woman wheeling the other woman and completely misses the woman in the wheelchair. You also have this video of a man who's had his face flayed. The flayed man in question is completely out of the camera shot, but these guys are basically holding up his ripped face and basically poking it and playing about with it. One of the members of the crew jokingly has the flayed face put onto his own face as a mask and as a joke, and a couple more men give the face a go. They put it on their own face, in which the camera then pans out and you do then see the man who has been flayed. We then have the pitbull castration video, a video that I've not exclusively talked about on this channel just yet. However, in short, the story goes that the man in question is apparently a rapist, and these two pit bulls are basically feasting on his now non-existent genitals. You also have your obvious penis and ball torture, in which there's a man with his penis and balls through a plank of wood in which his penis is basically on fire. You also see some footage filmed in a shooting range where it's basically focusing on the woman in the middle, but off to your left there's a man who basically turns the gun on himself and shoots the gun. I had to take a second look at that clip because it was so easy to miss. There's also a video of some guys holding up a decapitated head in what looks like a bathroom, though I'm not sure what language they're actually speaking. As for the rest of the body, well, that's in the bathtub. You then have a guy who is severely burnt, and by severely burnt I mean his skin is quite literally falling off, and he is quite literally smoking. There's also a shooting, basically just somebody going ham with a pistol. There's also a man and a woman having intercourse, in which a random man comes into the room. He stabs the man a few times, and then stabs the woman well over 40 to 50 times. You also have somebody's penis in a glory hole, in which somebody basically holds a lighter up to it, as well as this very tall man full on punching this shorter man. Now this shorter man goes down, it looks like he's dead, but I'm pretty sure he's just knocked out. There's also a naked woman's dead body thrown down the back of a wall, along with a large amount of trash or garbage. Again, this could just be for shock value, and the figure of this woman could as well just be like a sex toy or something like that, you know, like a sex doll. But you know, you never know. There's also a guy who is either one, dead, or two, just asleep and very drunk, in which somebody holds a lighter up to his ankle, the clothes on his ankles, and essentially sets him on fire, in which the fire just completely erupts, meaning the guy is probably dead after that point. We also have CCTV footage of 3 people talking. There's 2 men and 1 woman. Now I sort of presumed that there was just going to be some kind of shooting or something like that, but it turns out that a car actually hits the car that the 3 people are standing in front of, in which that car then crushes the woman in between the wall and the car. There's also a motorbike during a police pursuit, which is never a good sign. Now he crashes into another car at an intersection and goes flying several meters into the air, in which he more than likely just dies on impact. And then you have this completely naked guy who just sort of jumps off of a building onto a car. It's very movie-like, but the man seemed to be okay, apart from like a severely broken arm. You could see blood sort of spraying from the arm, but aside from that, he just sort of gets off the car and walks off. We also have a clip on a bus in which there's a little girl wearing a backpack. Now she gets off the bus, however the bus driver doesn't see the girl exit the bus fully, resulting in the doors closing on her backpack, and then it drags her, it must be several hundred yards down the road, in which she's basically hanging on for dear life at the side of this bus, going at like 40 or 50 mile an hour at the very least. We also have a guy who jumps off of a diving board, in which his whole head basically meets with the other side of the pool instead of the water. You also have a man who is very much deceased, and these guys are basically just hacking at his dead body with knives and whatnot. His limbs are all missing and there are just guts everywhere. So you also see what I suppose could be called a funny clip. I mean, it looks like it hurts, but I don't know. It's basically got a corn on a cob on a drill, attached to a drill. Now he sets the drill running and goes to eat it, in which he basically then just loses his front 2 teeth. Now we've also got a very strange clip of a guy on CCTV who actually stands on a landmine of some sort. Now this landmine actually blows up, but miraculously the guy seems to be okay. Like not a single limb missing or any blood or anything like that. So we also see a woman who is holding something above her head, in which she's then hit on the top of the head with a gigantic stick, resulting in her being instantly brain damaged and then convulsing violently. You then have this funny video of a little kid on a bike. Now the thing that he's staring off to stage left is actually it's a van with some breasts and some ass on it. You know, just a little funny clip to break up the horrible gore. There's also an arm wrestle, and these always make me cringe, in which there's a man arm wrestling a woman, in which the woman's arm just sort of snaps. You also see a couple of bike crashes as well as their aftermaths, and they are obviously never pretty. One of the guys on one of the bikes is actually fully decapitated from the accident. There's also some cycling videos, one including a huge crowd of cyclists in which a car basically just plows through them all, as well as a bus who sideswipes a guy on the side of the road with a bike, in which the bus basically runs over his head. There are also some shootings and whatnot, some of them quite obviously just overkill for the cameras, and people just emptying their rounds into other people. There's also a guy who's having his bare arse hit by somebody with a bat. And there's also a machine accident, so there's basically somebody working on a press of some kind, in which his arm gets stuck in the machine, and the machine begins to rotate him round and round extremely fast, basically tearing him to pieces. You also see a guy with a huge hole in his face, and he's still very much alive, as well as a brutal car crash in which somebody is hanging outside of the passenger seat, and their face is basically quite literally split in half. Half of their face is hanging off of another side of their face. There's also a very silly man who tries to grab a small shark, in which it bites his finger and twists it completely off. You also see a guy who pours lighter fluid into his pee-pee hole, in which he then uses some kind of gas and basically pisses out the lighter fluid, essentially creating a dragon from his penis, dragon dick. And one clip also includes the shooting of a man done by like a 5-year-old kid, and another clip including a man with his chest ripped open, in which one of the members of this gang or cartel basically consumes a piece of his heart. And this helicopter also falls from the sky, and then a giant cliff face falls on top of a boat. You also have this, I guess you can call it a meme, a very, very bad meme, in which you've got this guy Aaron and another guy called John and another guy called Michael, in which ultimately somebody in this confrontation is shot. We also have the Ronnie McNutt suicide, which, without going into too much detail right here, I'll leave a link to in the description. We've talked about it before. It's a very sad case. We also have this clip, and if you see that guy with the axe there, he basically just launches that axe into the head of the guy sitting on the couch. And then this Fairly Odd Parents skit, in which there's a car crash to the song September by Earth, Wind and Fire, as well as this weird video in which this person here in the mask basically cuts off the penis helmet of a guy. You've then got a large suicide compilation in which it includes things like Shawabi, 1444, the Bjork Stalker and Bud Dwyer, just to name a few. There's a helicopter outside. There's also a theme park accident where somebody basically falls out of this. You then have this group of girls, one of them sits on the bathroom counter, and then a slightly larger girl, can we say that, sits on the counter. There's also these dogs saving their cute little dog friend from another guy, and I thought at this point things on this mixtape were getting a bit better, and then a big penis flashed up on screen, nailed into a plank of wood, so I know we were back to where we were originally. There's also a huge explosion that comes up somewhere in the Middle East, as well as the shooting of John F. Kennedy. You also have this guy climbing over a gate, in which unfortunately he loses his footing and one of the spikes basically goes through the bottom of his face. You also have this guy, CCTV footage, in which a dog chases after him. He gets out into the road, you think he's escaped. He nearly gets hit by a bus and misses, and then he gets run over by a car. He gets slammed into by a car. There's also this video that has also circulated on the internet time and time again, where there's three people in a car, and now they're all talking, having a laugh, and you realise one of them's got a gun. Now the woman points this gun at the guy in the passenger seat, unintentionally or not, she pulls the trigger, and we're left with his body. We also see a big room full of people, or rather people parts. There's basically loads of people lined up, except their limbs are detached from their bodies. They're not attached, it's just torsos, legs, arms and heads. There's also this clip in which a group of guys, presumably a gang, comes in through the red door on the left and shoot a guy and just go overkill on this one guy. There's also this very scary clip of I think it's a school shooting taking place, in which you see CCTV footage of the shooter, and then it actually moves to first person footage of one of the apparent victims of the attack. And Batman also sets himself on fire here. You also see a guy having sex with a small Hoover. You also see a woman who has a whole bathroom brush, unused, shoved up her bumhole. You also have a guy who keeps putting things like fiberglass and glass shards in his bum, in which everything it shatters. You know, you've got some nails in there, you've got light bulbs in there, and you've just got a lot of glass, really. You name it, it's in there. You also have a very big woman lying on a bed wearing nothing but a large pair of underwear. There's also a guy who hangs himself by his penis to the tune, the theme song of Mission Impossible. And we also have a video of a guy who puts his weenus into another woman's stomach flaps to try and pleasure himself. And then this whole mixtape just basically comes to an end with a guy in the middle of the road being run over. You don't get like an outro, like a Spongebob outro or anything like that. It just sort of ends, so I suppose by the story you can just presume that the Chum bucket shuts down. And that's about it really. Thank you guys ever so much for watching. Stay safe and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.